Okay, I just saw a film called Jumanji where a character who just acquired a penis is being taught how to pee. I think someone needs to check Chris Van Allsburg's notes to find out if that's what he had in mind. Because that is one of the many things you wouldn't expect to work in this movie, but yet do. Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle is a loose sequel to the 1995 film which starred Robin Williams, Bonnie Hunt, and Kirsten Dunst, which in itself is adapted from a children's book by Chris Van Allsburg. Now, for those who don't know, the book and the original film is about a group of kids who find this board game, and every time they roll the dice, pull a card, anything that's said on the card transpires in real life. And what transpires next is an entirely mad rush to get this game finished so that way they can stop all the craziness that's coming from this game. And the original film that came out in 95 was a blast. It was a lot of fun, and actually it's one of those ones that you can easily put in to watch and have a great time with. And it had a lot of heart to it, and for fans of the book, they were very pleased with it, and actually found that a lot of stuff they added to it really kind of enriched the story a heck of a lot more. And the film actually did kind of end on a sequel-baity note. And if they ever did do a sequel, well, there is a lot of stuff they can mine from it. But here was the thing. The film was still... It wasn't something that was so, like... People were so hungry to see a sequel for. So when nothing came for 22 years, we were like, we're good. We're fine. 22 years down the line, Sony decided, let's make a sequel. Now, this film, we didn't know was going to be a sequel at the time, and we didn't actually think about that possibility. We were too focused on how scandalous Karen Gillan's outfit was. The one thing you wouldn't think would work is the fact that the four main characters, when you meet them as regular teens in high school, all of them are the typical high school dichotomy, the stuff you've seen portrayed in many other movies many times before. And yet, the stereotypes actually wind up being a virtue, particularly when we get into the plot and all of these characters become their video game avatars. And that's when the fun really kicks off, because you have, the geek, the jock, the pseudo Instagram celebrity, and the introvert, like the Daria-esque introvert who pretty much questions authority and all that stuff. You see them in the kind of avatars that are the complete opposite of what they are in real life. And even then, that premise is one I've seen done in many other things, and yet still done well here. The comedic potential is still mined to its peak. And the best part is, some of the actors in this film, particularly Dwayne Johnson, Karen Gillan, and Jack Black, really mine those concepts to the fullest extent, not just with them, but also the script. But even the script can only take you so far. The Rock, man, he's one of those that dude's untouchable. I mean, this guy has done a lot of stinkers in his time, but he's also established himself as someone who just is a fun actor who just seems to just bring this kind of singular light to anything he does. And this is definitely one of those ones that plays to a lot of his strengths as a comedian, as a presence. He is loads of fun in this movie, and he definitely is one of the things that carries this film all the way through. Even Karen Gillan, who really comes from a person who obviously could be a socially accepted person, it just seems like she's very awkward in her own skin. And what's kind of fascinating is that she turns to this person who's meant to be very, very confident and very self-assured. And what's fun is that her arc in the movie is that she actually has to learn to be comfortable with herself. And then you got, of course, the one character arc you kind of see coming a mile away when you meet the character is the character Bethany, the vainglorious Instagram celebrity, and then she's thrown into Jack Black's body. And that's something you thought was going to be grating. Even when you saw the trailer, you were thinking that was going to be grating, but they make it work. And that's the miracle of the movie, is that everything you think is going to be either tired or overdone or just a bad idea is made to work. I'd say amongst the main four, the weak link would be Kevin Hart, and it's not that he's bad in the movie. In fact, he still is very engaging in the movie. He still has a good rapport with the other actors. I think the major problem is that I think he had a hard time trying to emulate the character that we've established in the high school bit. When you meet his real life counterpart, he is, the big burly football guy, and he's very subdued. He's very serious business. And then he goes here into Jumanji, and he's Kevin Hart. It was kind of hard to make the connection between him and his real life counterpart. It's kind of one of those minor quibbles that you kind of just seem to settle into. It's one of those things that was lingering in the back of my head, but at the same time, I was like going, he's still engaging, he's still fun, the humor is still there, and he still is great. And I think that's what matters more, is how he gets along with the rest of the actors. And to that end, that's a success. And so, credit where it's due. So as I said, this is something of a loose sequel, and by that I mean this film came out 22 years after the previous one, and it is a sequel. It does actually show what happened to the game when you saw it washed up on the beach at the end of the movie. You see it end up in the hands of a video game freak who neglects it. The game adapts, turns into a video game, and then as time goes on, you find it winding up in the hands of these other kids. On sequel terms, it's good because I will say in the original film, it did allude to a lot of things that happened inside Jumanji. When Alan talks about all the horrible things he's encountered inside the game, and it did intrigue you to a point where you're like, I'd like to actually see what it was like inside. There was an animated series which showed it, but not everyone saw the animated series. And so it was great to have a movie that flips it, and now you're in the game. And once again, mines it to the full potential. It was a blast seeing what Jumanji looked like on the inside. It was really cool. And for extra measure, because it adapted to a video game, we did get a great little wealth of video game parody. And I was geeking out when I saw how you got actors pretending to be NPCs. That was great. I liked that actually there was a nice mnemonic device to add some tension with the life bars, where you find out that they all have 3 lives. That was really cool, and actually did add a nice level of tension, because you also had another character played by Nick Jonas, who's been in there and he's got 1 life left. And I'm like going, because we've established that people do die in Jumanji. It's not beyond the shadow of a doubt. So I was actually wondering if they were going to go for it, and there are some very close scrapes, and I gotta acknowledge how well done it was, because I actually cared all the way through. As it is a sequel, you would want it to connect a bit more to the previous film. Well, for that, unfortunately, the connections are pretty fleeting. It only makes a passing reference to Alan Parrish. It does make some minor nods to the fact that it was once a board game. There is actually a cool shot where it pulls out and you see that the map of Jumanji is actually very similar to the board game. And to that end, that is kind of cool, but they're all pretty minor. So it does leave one with another lingering sense of maybe they should have just jumped into this cold turkey and not really be worried about making the connection to the previous film. But it's one of those things where you don't really care so much, because the original film, as fun as it is, and one that does stay with you because of how much fun it is, the film wasn't like a monumental hit. It wasn't Indiana Jones. It wasn't Star Wars. It wasn't one of those great action mammoths. I mean, even if this film were mediocre, it would never tarnish our memory of the original. I mean, if they did it far removed, it would have been its own thing, would have been buried. So you're kind of at war with yourself, and I suppose the ultimate test to find out how much merit this film has is to see how it stands the test of time. And with that, I'd say we'll have to wait and see, because as fun as this film is, as as enjoyable as the action is, as enjoyable the character interplay is, on the whole, it's still a bit of a pedestrian affair. The action is standard, enjoyable but standard. Characters enjoyable but still standard. So I guess the ultimate judge on this film is to see how memorable it is in the years to come. So for now, in my summation, I'm going to say Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle is a highly enjoyable romp. I will say, now that we're into award season and we're seeing a whole bunch of Oscar bait coming out, this is definitely a great film to distract you from that. So I'd say definitely go see it. And so with that, I'm going to give it a final Narcotic Casserole rating of... Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think they should have left well enough alone? Or do you think that this film may actually be better than the original? Leave it all in the comments below. And for more addictive content on Narcotic Casserole, simply like, share, subscribe, click. Thou shalt be served.